Right then folks, welcome back. Now we're going to continue on the dragoons I started the other week. So what I'm going to do in this video, it's probably going to be a little bit longer, but I'm going to do the flesh, show you how I do it, only the way I do it, I'm not saying it's necessarily right, and then we're going to do the musket as well. So back to the flesh, same old, the dwarven flesh 124. Again, on these I always put an agitator in, helps mix the paint. Just a small touch of water in that. This will thin out steadily anyway because I'm using a wet palette. It's not overly wet. So, half a naft brush. Just cover the flesh and don't let it go on too thick. Working it up to the hairline, down to the collar, maybe it's his shirt or his jacket depending on how it's been sculpted. And this figure, by the way, is from Bicorne miniatures. I think I've mentioned it in the past on stuff I've already shown you. But yeah, down to the hand. Yeah, you can see this brush, the tip's gone on it. It's ideal for doing this sort of work, but you can't do any detailed work with it. It didn't take this long to do this as well. Had a stray hair, so I clipped that, kept the point for a little while, and then bingo, it just went, which is a bit annoying. But these are quite cheap. These are from Model Painter. I can't remember, is it ABC paint brushes or something like that, and you get a full set of paint brushes for about 15 quid. So yeah, you pay for what you get, but then again you can pay a fortune for some and they're not much better. So right, I just let that clean my brush out so I don't get gunked up half dry paint. And what we do now is wait till it's slightly more drier, and we'll go back, go over the top of all the flesh again, which will get rid of any black that's showing underneath. If you add too much water, if it gets too thin, just do more than 2 coats. I know it's taking time up, but it just covers it. I mean, Duncan Rhodes, if it's good enough for him to say 2 thin coats, you know, I'm going to say as many thin coats as you require. So you do what you need to do to get a nice coverage. I need to do the other side of that face. So you can see this brush is, you know, splitting out already. That's really parting now. The trials and tribulations of paintbrushes. Absolute nightmare. Them say I used to use Winsor & Newton Series 7. They used to last ages. Keep a wonderful point. But the last lot I had, nope, rubbish. So I'm going to be cheeky now. Anybody out there that's got paintbrushes or manufactures paintbrushes based in the UK, if you want to contact me for me to test drive your brushes and see if they're Dale proof, yeah, please do so. I'll also give it a shout out if it's your company's stuff. I'll also give an honest opinion on the review. I don't sugarcoat things. Never have done, never will do. Yeah, you'll always get honesty out of me. Some people don't like how brutal I am, but it is what it is. So right, just waiting on that flesh to dry. It's near enough dry, to be fair. This one seems a little bit more chalkier than the others. I don't know why. Same say, it still dries pretty well, and it's not as chalky as some of the Valio paints. But that's took a couple of coats, as you can see, to get over the top. You'll tend to find some of the Valio colours you're going to have to do that with anyway. There's nothing much you can do about that. So, yep, so that's dry enough now. Duncan Rose 2 thin coats, flesh wash. It's pretty good consistency. It's very much like the old flesh wash from the GW paints before they went into like a gloss finish. So yeah, I tend to use this one. I don't like gloss finishes on wash, to be fair. So there we go. Going back to another half naff brush, which is Artis Opus size 1 brush. No tip left on that, that can make it fine, but it'll do for what I'm doing now. Again, another set of expensive brushes. Whether I've some naff ones, I don't know. I've always done what they said, to look after it, do this, that and t'other. I think it took, what, nearly a month, and it was no good. So yeah, wasn't overly impressed. I've got brush cleaner, brush soap and all that. It wasn't theirs, but the brush soap is brush soap, and brush cleaner and restorer is virtually the same as what they use. So yeah, so there we go, quick wash over and leave that to dry. Yeah, English Civil War is a bit of a passion of mine. I used to do English Civil War reenactment with Sealed Knot, did that for a number of years. And there was a small group called the Siege Group, which was obviously all based around the 17th century. Quite enjoyed doing that. That was a good little group. And then I went from there, did another period of reenactment, and then there were a gang of youngsters that wanted to do a different period, large battle, so I took them back to the Sealed Knot and formed a new regiment there. Yeah, but as with everything, you get your politics and rubbish, and I left. I won't dwell on that too much. But yeah, so I've always done 28mm English Civil War. Started off with the Foundry ones when they first came out, which was about nearly 40 years ago. That range is still going now, strong. Bit limited on what you've got and a little bit dated, but still nice models or figures, to be fair. So yeah, but I've started. I saw these bloody miniatures online, well, through Facebook, and I must admit they've got lots of character. Lovely to paint. So yeah, I ended up getting virtually everything they do except for some of the cavalry. And then obviously Bicorne miniatures have been around a long time. They were done by the same sculptor, I believe. And that's an extensive range of various different helmets, hats and this, that and other, so you can make some nice distinctive units up, and they mix in quite well with the bloody miniatures. Bloody miniatures I think hit the UK about 4 years ago, something like that, and they really have sparked a lot of interest. So yeah, that's the wash dry. So what we do now, we go back to the original flesh, keep it to a nice point on your brush, and then we start to go down the nose, either side, for the nostrils. Oh, I just caught the camera again, sorry folks. the eye ridge, eyelid, top lip, I don't know if you can see that. Lighting's gone skiff. I tried to correct it so you could see better, and it looks like I've done worse. Anyhow, I'll just have to keep trying. Done the chin, now we're doing the cheek. And on the other side. You tend to find that I leave a groove or the base colour showing from the nose down the side of the top lip. So, bottom eyelid. Yeah, the coughing you can hear in the background is my wife. She's full of pestilence.
Good evening.
Yeah, she's the long-suffering wife of me and my hobbies. So, yeah, what we're doing now is the hands. Obviously, doing the fingers, leaving the groove with the wash in it. So it sort of differentiates all the fingers. Don't worry if you do get some paint in that crevice. We can correct that later with something that I do. Don't have to do it, folks, but it's just something I do. So doing all the back of the hand, going around and doing the thumb. So that's that bit. Right. Coat arms bone. Some of that on your palette. And as with everything when you're using drop of pet bottles, they gam up. Now, and punching that nail, here we go, all the paint comes running out now. So there should be enough on there. I don't have to squeeze any more out. So, some of the original flesh. 1, 2 brush loads fill. Bit of that in, and it changes tone. Just enough to take it to a different level. Again, keeping a good point on your brush. This is how I do the rest of the highlighting on the face. Right, tip of the nose, small dot, ridge of the nose, leaving a gap there. If the figure's prominent enough, I do a little dot either side to represent nostrils, and I go to the top lip, do 2 triangular shapes, leaving a bit of a gap directly under the nose and a line coming down, so it sort of differentiates, you know, that bit at the top on your lip that sinks a bit. Then the tops of the cheeks, under the eye, and across to the top of the cheek, and then run it down that crease on the face. You might not see it on here, but then along the jawbone, This is starting to dry on the brush. Then the chin, the other cheek, jawbone, right. The forward part of your brow. This is the difficult bit where you need a steady hand and a good tip on your brush. Top eyelid, bottom eyelid, same on other side. I'm getting a rogue hair on my brush. Clean my brush out because that paint's starting to dry on it. Then down to the hands we go. Right, top part of the hand, the thumb, leaving a gap. Right, your fingers. Leave a gap below that knuckle, take it about halfway down or onto the bend of a finger. Yeah, leave a gap again. Just caught camera again, sorry folks. And do the tips of the fingers. Right, this one, thumb, leave a gap, bring that across the top of there and then into there. Then we go to the back of the hand, start where the knuckles are, drag it back slightly, leaving some of the original skin tone showing. Here we go again, just low knuckle down towards a bend. Same with all four fingers. And the fingertips. There we go. That's your next highlight. And then just to give it that little bit of a punch, we take the bone again, brush load of it and mix it in. And you'll see it change again. I can't tell really on this lighting, but yeah. Again, taking that brush, trying to keep the point on it, and we go back again. This time it's just tip of the nose. It's quite a small nose on this one, to be fair. Top of the cheekbone, very fine line, and then down the side as well, very fine. Same on the other side. That little bit of a eyebrow ridge or ridge of the head, small little bit to enhance that top lip. Then the chin. Sometimes I do the jawbone depending on how prominent it is from the figure and the hair. So there we go. Right, for the hands, your knuckle. 1, 2, 3, 4. That thumb and a little bit of a line coming back but leaving a gap. Then on here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then your fingertips. Then 2, 3, 4. Again, fingertips. Knuckle. 1, 2, 3, 4 with the finger knuckles. Normal knuckles. Just a dot on each of them. Right, the thumb, the very tip of it. Because it's gripping around there, I tend to do a fine line there and then just take it down so you've got that pressure around the hand that's holding something. So there you go, that's the flesh, but we're not fully done. We're going to do the lip now, and this is using Pink Horror by Games Workshop Citadel colour. A little dot of it on the palette. Right, small bit on your brush, that's where you need a steady hand. That bottom lip, if you notice we haven't painted it, just do a nice line across there. Looks a bit dark, so push the brush out. Taking that last mix of flesh, just work it in there till it becomes a very pale pink. And what we're going to do now is a very fine line on the top edge of that lip. And there you go, folks, that's the lip done. So the next bit is where you need a serious steady hand and a bit of confidence. Tooth & Coats Helium Red, or is it Carberg Red, or whatever it is of the washes in GW. It's where you need your brush to remain with a good fine tip. Right, do not overload your brush, just place the tip in there. Then you're doing top end of the nostril, work it round, under, top end of the nostril, round and under. A little bit in that crease here from the corner of the nostril, and just thinly taper it down. Don't have to do it heavy. And again there. What I do also is run this down the side of the hair and underneath where the skin meets any collars, and on here. If you're feeling quite confident, just do it along the edge of the hat and the hairline. For the hands, nice point in between the fingers, along the top bit where the skin meets any clothing. Same again here. Yeah, you don't need a lot on your brush. It'll look like there's nothing going on, but there is. Again, where it meets clothing, down the top end of there. So that's the first bit. Then the next one's Druky Violet from Citadel Shade. Oh, I splattered all over there. Again, the smallest bit on your brush. Get that point onto your brush. Down the side of the hair, nice and fine line. Same as where we've done before. And then a little bit across the top. Oh, keep catching this camera, I'm sorry folks. Then halfway down the fingers into that crevice, a little bit there, definitely halfway down the hand and underneath it meets the clothes. And that's the flesh done. So we're going to carry on and do the musket. Well, I'll do this same all the way along the other three that I've got to do, but I'm going to try and work on one to shorten the load for everybody. Right, gunmetal front coat of arms. Shake it up a bit. A little bit of that on there. small touch of water. There's a naffy brush, but a small one. Now these are dog locks, so obviously you're going to do all the lock system. Don't worry about it, just get it covered. Doesn't mind if you leave a little bit black undercoat showing. Just try and be careful a bit. And the barrel, and this is where you have got to be careful because you're getting near the hands that you've painted. Don't worry about it going on the wood at the moment. Just make sure you don't get it on the hands or anything else like flesh. Across there. There we go. Then up the other side of the barrel. There you go, that's barrel done. Trigger and trigger guard. Again, don't worry if you leave a bit of black showing, it's not a major problem. Now you can see the guard of the sword in there, so we're going to do that at the same time. So it's got to be done that thingy. Now, butt plate on these, and these two, what they used to call the pipes. I can't remember whether they're brass or, steel. So I'm going to leave them. I'm going to look at one of my books later on, so I'll probably finish that bit later on tomorrow. But that's the basics with the metal. Now if you wanted to, you could leave it like that, but me being the eccentric idiot that I am, I'm going to use some neon oil. Again, GW. This is the old stuff that dries matte, so just splatter that on there. The half nafta Otis Opus brush, and over all the metal work, this is where you don't need it to go all over the flesh, so try not to put too much on your brush, because what will happen is it'll run and seep or come down off the back of the lock. Work from the tip of the barrel down towards the hand, so you know you're offloading most of the wash as you're coming down the barrel towards the hand. Same on this side as well. There you go. And then onto the sword guard. So this shouldn't take long to dry because I've not plastered it on. So what you need to do now is just let that dry, which we'll do is wait.
Sorry.
Anyway, yeah, so we're just waiting for that to dry. Not far off being dry, to be fair. What we do now, back into that original gunmetal, still be nice and moist enough. What we're going to do is re-highlight some of the prominent bits on that lock. Just plate there a little bit, and then just enhance, trigger guard, trigger, top side of the lock there, along the top edge of the barrel, being careful of that, those fingers there. Yeah, try and leave some of the dark stuff where it's near the wood. make life a bit easier for you later on. So again, we just do the top edge. There you go. And that'll do at that for barrel. It's a nice gunmetal colour. Nobody knows really how dark the metal would be. Some of it was quite rusty if you didn't look after them properly. So all I've done is just re-picked out that guard, hand guard on the sword, and that's it for the metal bits. Same say we'll look at some pictures, I'll do some reading, find out whether it was a brass butt plate and the pipes were brass. Notice I haven't done the ramrod. They weren't metal, they were wood. Some of them had a little metal tip on end for ramming down, your charges and stuff. But they used to tend to snap, so it ended up being like a flat bullet coming out. If you weren't aware. But yeah, they're mainly just wood. So the steel ones didn't come in until the late 18th century, and maybe a little bit later than that, to be fair. So that's that bit. Now we're going on to doing the wood. Vallejo charred brown, because I haven't got anything dark enough or the same shade I need to use in any of the other colours at the moment. So again, onto your wet palette, just a touch of water in there, just make that a bit more malleable. Back to a detail brush. You definitely need a bit more of a reasonably steady hand here. So fingers down or hand downwards, just painting this all where the wood would be. Then side of there, that getting it on the metal, and there. This bit round the back would be on the stock, would be wood. Obviously between the fingers, the underneath is wood. Now this is where you've got to be careful. You've got the top end of the wooden stock near the metal, between the fingers and the lock, and leaving the dark line in between the barrel as well. Again here, I don't know whether you can see it, but working down there, leaving the ramrod and the black line between the ramrod as well, and the black line between the stock and the barrel. Some showing on the inside of here, we'll just darken that out, and then back over to the other side, working away from the thumb upwards, again leaving a dark black line between the stock and the ramrod, and also the barrel. Now there is a little bit in there, this is a bit you have to be careful with because you've already painted the skin, but just go in there, touch it in. You're not necessarily going to see that on a gaming table, but I am. So yeah, that's the base coat done of the wood. And obviously with that being the new formula of Vallejo, dries relatively quick. Just taking a swag of my tea. And the next colour is Terracotta Shade 37A. This is quite a dark colour, to be fair. It's not like your terracotta would normally look. Dab with that on there, slightest touch of water. So here we go, nice little bit. Turning the brush, getting a fine point. What I'm going to do now is work away from the fingers, leaving some darker lines showing in between each brush stroke down. It doesn't matter if they touch. So all this is doing at the moment, you know, these lines is defining where the wood is a bit more and making it look like it's got a grain. In here, you're deadly careful. Tend to run along the edge of the stock in here, along there, a couple of dots lines, and again being careful again, turning the figure around, doing a fine line along the top of the wood, and a little one in between the stock, the lock and the fingers. Again along the top of the wood, leaving a gap, and along the bottom part of the wood or stock. Yeah. Again on the other bit, the bit that we did before in between that thumb and backwards, we ain't going to touch. But just along the top edge. Along the bottom edge. There you go. So that's the second highlight. Next colour is Foundry Space Shaft 13B. A little bit of that on his wet palette again. Again, getting a fine point. And this is quite stark, but if you do nice fine lines, it's not too bad. And because it's on a wet palette, you'll tend to find some of the colour will fade because it's slightly thin paint. Again, that's all we're doing. Some lines like that along the bottom end of the stock there. Nice fine line. There's a few under there. No, we didn't undercoat that, but it'll just take the harshness off. In between the top end of the lock and the body, that's where you've got to be careful. A couple of fine lines there. Top end of the stock again. Nice fine line above the fingers. Try not to catch the fingers. And then maybe a line in between there if you can get one in. Then along the top end of the stock, a fine line if possible. And along the bottom, fine. I think you just dot it a bit as well down the middle, just make it look like it's a wood grain. Again, fine line along that top edge. It's going a bit thick because I didn't spin my brush around. Again along the bottom, and then a few dots just to break that up. So folks, that's the flesh, barrel and the wood stock done. We'll come back tomorrow and finish the rest of the metal work off in the ramrod. And yeah, so there you go folks, all the rest of the dragoons will end up looking like that when I've worked through them, and then I'll come back another day and do another part of the figure. Okay then folks, thanks very much. See you all soon. Like, subscribe, all the gumph, and I'll catch you soon. Bye.